Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Today, we have a very special guest, a returning guest. I think it's her third time, if I'm not mistaken, on the show right here. And we have Jen Piccotti, president of Swift Bunny. Welcome to the show, Jen. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Adrian. It's so great to be here.
Jen, one of the reasons I wanted to get you back to the show was to talk about your 2024 Employee Engagement Risk Report. And I want to start by asking you to give us a high level review of the 2024 report. What does it reveal? What are the most important findings of the report?
Yeah, this is something that we've been publishing now for a few years, and we really want to get all the data from over 400,000 units of employees and to find out what exactly they're thinking about, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And it's been interesting to see how the trends have changed year over year. And one of the big things that we're finding that we were really excited to see is that the companies that are getting feedback from their employees and they are finding the things that their challenges and they're willing to address those challenges and make some adjustments and make some decisions based on that information, we're finding that the length of tenure for employees has increased and went from about 3.3 years on average for the average employee tenure up to 3.5 years. And so that to us is really validating that when you are checking in with your employees, when you're asking for their feedback, when you're willing to rethink some of the things that you're doing, some of the decisions that you're making, and you make those changes and let your employees know, hey, this is based on the feedback that you gave us, it really does positively impact the employee's perception of how things are going, how they feel about the company, how they feel about leadership. And we're also seeing some really great improvements around things like people being able to take PTO. That was something that has been a real challenge over the past couple of years. And now we're seeing people starting to feel like they have a little more breathing room. They can take that time off. They really can take care of themselves and their families in a way that maybe they couldn't a couple of years ago. We're also seeing a lot of great interaction and trust and camaraderie between team members. People by and large enjoy who they're working with and who they're working for. So we're seeing increased positive relationships with supervisors and with executive leadership, which I think is a big deal. On the flip side of that, though, we're also seeing some challenges, new challenges that we haven't seen before. A lot to do with communication, which is not a new problem, but the intensity of it has increased. We're also seeing more challenges around policies and procedures not being enforced consistently. That's not something that we've seen rise to the top as far as challenges go. So some of those types of things have raised some eyebrows of, okay, that's an interesting thing. Now what can we do about it?
So you mentioned policies being enforced and enforcement. From personal experience, I've learned that actually getting the buy-in is like paramount when you try to enforce a policy, right? So the word enforcing takes me to like forcing something onto people.
Right.
And from personal experience, and I think from understanding a little bit about human nature, that doesn't work. So is there any type of feedback over there about from the employees saying we really thought that this was a very thought out rollout of a policy, and it could even be like a tech rollout or whatever, because, and
Mhm.
what is that because? What goes after the because? Do you have that information in a report, or in general, even outside of the report, we're seeing that in the surveys? What
Yeah, it's such a good point because one of the questions that we do ask in the survey is, do you feel that anyone is asking for your feedback on how to do something in a new or better way? And there's quite a few employees who are saying, yeah, no one cares how I feel about it. And I may have the experience or the expertise in this area, or I've seen it done a better way, but no one wants to hear that from me. So we do hear that kind of feedback on a pretty regular basis. I think that's a big opportunity of really tapping into the employees that we have because everyone comes with such rich experience. Even if it isn't exact multifamily experience, they've had other jobs or they've been involved with organizations or sports teams or whatever it might be where they have seen certain things work very well or very poorly. And to be able to ask that their experience and draw that out it really does help get buy-in. But the other part of the policy and procedure conversation that I think needs to happen is, okay, we just came through a really weird period in history that no one's ever lived before, this pandemic, where policies or how people did something or the requirements could change on a daily basis. In some cases, they were changing on an hourly basis. And so it's okay, right now we're doing it this way. Oh, okay, now we have to do it this other way. And so there was a lot of change, pivot, right? Pivot was like the main word of the day for a while. And so now we're back into a period of time where we're doing business in a more familiar manner. But when we think about the level of turnover that happens in our industry, it can be 30, 40, 50, 60% turnover. And you've got a lot of new people coming into the company who maybe have no frame of reference in multifamily. They don't know what normal is. They don't know what business as usual is. And so unless companies and supervisors are doing a really good job at establishing, here's how we do things around here. Here's the normal, the standard operating procedures. If you don't have a solid foundation coming in, then yeah, you're going to do it the easiest way or what seems most logical to you, or you're guessing. And so I think this is our opportunity in our industry to really teach, re-roll out our standard operating procedures and ensuring that everyone's on the same page, because you can't just do it once 2 years ago, or you rolled out a policy 2 years ago and expect everyone to really know it. So I think there's an opportunity to relearn, re-roll out, re-remind so that everyone is on the same page. Because right now I feel like there's a whole lot of assumption that everyone should know what business as usual looks like. I don't think that's the case. People are really, they're doing the best they can. So they really do, I think, want that instruction of, okay, how do we do this around here? And I think that's a relatively easy lift as far as you probably have them defined already. Now it's just about communicating it in an effective manner and on a regular basis.
You mentioned how we do things around here. I know this is a very important topic to Kara and Rice, right? One
Yep.
say, and she says that's culture. That's how she defines culture. How do we do things around
Mhm.
here? I remember that you were developing a tool to help companies like do the onboarding and bring
Mhm.
everything in one place, centralized, take all of their software pieces, put them all together in a software that is being built by your company to help
Mhm.
them do the onboarding seamlessly. Is that now out available to the public? Are you selling this product? Do you have it available for the public?
We're just in the initial beta process, which I'm so excited about. So it's Introduce is the name of the product, and it's a platform where you can define what are all the onboarding tasks, because onboarding isn't just training. It's not just what happens in the first few days. It's not just orientation. It's really all of the pieces of those, pretty much the first 90 days of finding out, okay, here's who the company is, here's what your responsibilities are, here are the different departments or team members that you'll work with regularly, here's how you do your tasks, just all of those things that get you up and running so that you can be a fully functional, fully contributing member of the team. And when you have all those tasks listed out, different people are responsible for different aspects of that. So IT is responsible for creating my new email address, for example. Our training manager is responsible for getting me signed up for new hire orientation, et cetera. And so those tasks within our platform can be assigned out. So IT knows, they get pinged. Okay, it's time to make Jen's new email address. Ping the HR. Oh, okay, it's time to set Jen up for new hire orientation. And so it manages and tracks all of the tasks as they're being assigned and completed. So you can check at any given time. Okay, they're halfway through their onboarding, or we're late on a few of these items. So the supervisor doesn't have to be manually tracking and following up. All of the things are assigned automatically and can be checked off the list, just to streamline that process and make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Because right now we don't do a great job in our industry of onboarding people. I don't know that any industry really does. So this will be a tool to help streamline that and make it more efficient, more consistent, more effective.
Does this tool follow the employee through their journey with the company beyond onboarding, or is just like a 30, 60, 90, 120-day tool?
We have grand plans for it to extend throughout their entire life cycle with the company. For now, we're just focusing on onboarding. We're going to get that up and running and really solid. And then we look forward to like career development paths and things like that down the road. So a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here. Having this tool following them throughout their existence with the company
Mhm.
and implementing some feedback along the way, because this is what you mainly do, like your core
Mhm.
product is feedback, employee feedback, and include touching points 30, 60, 90 days out to get their pulse and
Yep.
feed that back to their supervisor and to the leadership of the company. I think that would be tremendous. You could make it real time, and you could actually put it on an app to where their supervisor could check their
Mhm.
temperature of their teams at any given time. There are apps out there that are doing like employee engagement in different ways, right? Not in the way that
Mhm.
I described. And they do the same thing, they follow the same process. I think it'll be fascinating to see a product like yours following them through their entire career with a company and
Mhm.
putting that data and constantly feeding back like how they feel about working at the company,
Mhm.
feeding that back into management so management knows at any given point in real time what's happening with their company culture.
We do a lot of that right now with our new hire and our first week surveys and our onboarding surveys so that we can track, okay, you just started with us. How are things going? Okay, we're at the 90-day mark. Are you feeling like you're up and running? You know what you're supposed to be doing? And what's interesting is when you talk about that, those first 90, 120 days, we saw that there was a really high level of turnover that can happen within those first 90 days, probably 1 in 6 in 2023. 1 in 6 new hires left the company before reaching the 90-day mark. And a lot of it was attributed to not having enough time or not being given the time to do the required training during the workday. There was also, for those who left, there was a level of frustration that I don't really know how to do these tasks. It's almost like they got thrown into the frying pan and they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. That feeling of incompetence, not knowing what's expected of me, not knowing what's going on. I think people can only last so long before they're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. But the good news is for tenured employees, and that's actually something that we found in the risk report, one of the areas there we saw improvement in is people feeling competent and understanding what is expected of them. So for tenured employees, they really do understand. I know what's expected of me. I know how I'm contributing to the company. I know how I'm contributing to the team. And that sense of competence leads to confidence. And those are things that really build an organizational culture that people want to stick around in because they feel like I matter. What I do here matters to my team, matters to my residents, rather matters to the organization overall.
I'm thinking about the workloads. Back at Optic in October 2023, I was watching a panel over there, and someone was saying they heard about a company that requires a leasing agent, a entry level person, to be proficient in 57 different softwares, pieces of software. And another person on the panel replied, yeah, this is still good at 57 because we're at 63. You're paying someone like barely over minimum wage, very entry level with little to no experience. And you have the expectation for them to know 60 something pieces of software, not to know, to be proficient in. I
Mhm.
think that's a little bit too much, a little bit of a stretch. So I wonder if there's any data in the report or in general outside of the report that you could share here with the audience about the workload. What's the sentiment out there of your employees, clients about the workloads that they're dealing with, they're facing on a daily basis?
Yeah. The good news is that we saw a slight improvement in that particular area, a little bit. And I think part of that is attributed to there's not quite as many open positions as there were the previous year. So we're having full teams, still have a ways to go, but we're doing better. And so when you have more of a full team, you're not feeling as stretched because I'm not trying to cover 2 positions. I can just focus on my job. So that's one thing that's contributing to that positive level. I think the tech stack is an ongoing conversation. Just what you're talking about, 57, 63, however many platforms. It's a lot for anyone to embrace. And that's actually a study that we're conducting right now with Lisa Trozine on the impact of technology on-site team members. And it's going to be really interesting to see those results. It's going to be presented at Apartmentalize this summer. But there's something that we need to be aware of. On one hand, a lot of our team members, they've grown up with technology. A lot of the technology that they're being asked to use is fairly intuitive. Yes, they do have to learn how to do it, but they're not afraid of it necessarily. They're not afraid of technology. They like technology. Technology is a part of every aspect of their life. What the bigger issue, from what I'm seeing, is the technology I'm being asked to use helpful? Does it make things more efficient or less efficient? If I'm doing a task on this platform here, must I also do that same task or enter that same information over here? And so I think one thing that companies really need to do, and I don't see it happening very often. In fact, I think I've talked with 2 companies that have done this, is all the technology, especially that they rolled out during the pandemic, to make things more efficient, to enable people to work remotely and keep business flowing. Very few of them have stepped back and said, okay, what is our core business operation? What are the things that we have to do in order to have a solid, healthy business? And are all the pieces of technology that we put into place, are they helping us achieve those goals? Are they doing what we intended them to do? Or are they no longer relevant? Or is another technology that we have implemented also able to cover this thing over here? Can we streamline the number of technologies and still cover all of the business operations that we're doing? And being willing to step back and say, you know what, this one isn't relevant anymore. We can put that away. Or this piece of technology covers multiple things. We don't need these 2 other pieces of technology. So really evaluating what you have and making sure that you're using them to the fullest extent, instead of just piling things on without really evaluating, do we really need this, or is this covered by some of the other things that we have in place? I think if companies would intentionally do a technology audit to see what they have in place and is it really solving the problem that's needed to be solved, I think their employees would be very appreciative of that care and that thoughtfulness, so that the stuff that they have in place are the things that they really need to have in place. I think that's the piece that's missing right now.
Are you aware of any companies taking this like very serious, making it a priority to do a serious audit and say what it's a must have and the rest of it is got to go, or a good part of the rest?
I know of one company that is taking that stance. That's it. And I'm actually going to be following up with their chief technology officer in a month or so. And I'm curious to find out what he's found. I'll be curious to see what the response has been, what kind of pushback or cheering on he's received from that process. But it's the only one that I've heard so far. But I think it's really needed.
Yeah, I love to be a fly on the wall when you have the conversation with a chief technology officer, because I'm super intrigued myself about
Mhm.
how is that going to go. And it's also, there's great news from 2 different angles. One, because somebody it's actually doing it, even if it's just one company that you know of. And secondly, there's so much opportunity for the rest of the companies to
Oh,
follow
yeah.
trend. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to hear the results. Hopefully they'll share something with the public, or maybe hopefully I could get someone on the podcast, maybe the CTO,
Yeah.
to just share information with the public, because it's definitely a concern at the site level.
Yeah. I'll give that person a nudge and be like, all right, you got to share the goods. Tell us how it went.
Put a good word in for Multifamily Chronicles out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you mentioned employees appreciating this about their company. So I want to have a question now. What are property management employees appreciating most about their jobs? What are you learning that they appreciate the most?
They are truly appreciating who they work with. That was the biggest message I think that came out of it, which I think is so awesome, because we spend so much time, so many hours with our coworkers. We spend so much time in our office. I work in a remote office, but I'm on the phone or I'm in Zoom calls constantly with team members. And to be able to see the overall sentiment be, I like who I work with. I like my coworkers. I like my team members. I trust them, so that I think that really helps with the workload too. If I can trust my coworker and I know that they're focusing on doing their best work and they're taking care of their responsibilities, then I don't have to think about that. I can be fully committed and fully focused on my responsibilities. And I know that everything else is being covered by all my other team members. And I think when you have that kind of environment, that's where true teamwork comes into play, because we all know we're doing our best work, they're doing their best work. And I also know if I need help, I can trust one of them to say, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll help you out. So that's a huge thing. The other one of supervisors trusting my judgment as an employee, I think that's absolutely huge, because we've heard the flip side of that, which is the micromanaging. No one likes to be micromanaged. It feels disrespectful when someone doesn't trust me enough to do my job well or to make a good decision. And so I think for team members to say, you know what, my supervisor does trust my judgment. We saw that as an overwhelmingly positive sentiment that came across. There are always exceptions, but by and large, people feel trusted by their supervisors. We also saw a lot of great things of feeling respected. And I think this is huge in any environment, is to feel like, whether it's a team member, a supervisor, an executive, a support team member, but I feel like I am respected by my coworkers. That is going to enable so many things. That unlocks the door for all kinds of things. That unlocks the door for me to offer ideas, raise my hand to help you out, volunteer for other things. I feel that confidence because I feel like, okay, I have my team's respect. So I feel more comfortable stepping out, maybe stepping out of my comfort zone. And that's where really cool things can start happening. But it also allows me, if I feel respected by my coworkers, it makes me feel more comfortable in asking for help, asking questions, admitting that I don't know the answer or I need some support in this area. So that respect, it really is the key to unlocking true performance on an individual and team level. So that was a huge one for me. And then seeing that executive leadership, respecting executive leadership. I had such a great conversation with Allison Johnson from NMHC, and I was sharing some of these results with her, and I was telling her about how executive leadership, respecting executive leadership, can have almost as strong of a positive impact on team members staying at an organization as having a good relationship with your supervisor. Because we've heard this all the time. You'll stick around if you have a great supervisor. If you like your supervisor, you're treated well, I'm going to stick around for that. And I said, but having respect for executive leadership has almost as strong of an impact. I go, so for example, if I have strong respect for my executive leaders and things start to go sideways with my direct supervisor, I will be more likely to stick around a little bit longer because I have faith and confidence that leadership is going to right the ship. They're going to make adjustments. They're going to address concerns, et cetera, and get things back on track with my supervisor. I'm willing to stick around because I have that trust. But on the flip side, if I don't respect executive leadership, or I don't know them, or I don't see or hear from them, and things start to go sideways with my supervisor, I'm much more likely to get out of there because I don't have any faith that things are going to get better. Why would I? I don't know how leadership would handle this. And so Allison was saying, wow, it sounds like it's a balancing act and very complementary of being able to not only have a good relationship with your supervisor, but also have a good respect for executive leadership. And if one of those things goes a little bit sideways, you have the other one that's going to counterbalance it and have me stick around a little bit longer because of those strong relationships. And that's something that we do have in our industry coming through really strongly, which is exciting to me.
Jen, I want to go over frustration, employee frustration. What is your report's findings regarding the top frustrations that might or could cause employees to leave their jobs this year?
Yeah, compensation is always going to top the list. We're never going to say we're paid too much. We always want to be paid more. And I don't mean to say that lightly, because I know that really is a strong concern. But I think that's one of those concerns that we will see consistently year over year. I have seen some progress over the last year, which is good, but it's still probably the top concern out of everything. Another top frustration is communication. And there's two types of communication. There's the macro communication, like the big picture, what we're hearing from top leadership. And then there's the micro communication of just getting answers to my questions from accounting or my regional or whoever. So the macro and micro communication is a bigger challenge this year than I've seen in previous years, which I think is really interesting. Professional development's another one. People want to know not just how I can get promoted, but how can I just improve my skill set? How can I widen my skill set? So that's a big thing that's at the top of the list. And then having what they need to do their work. If I'm a maintenance technician, for example, and I don't have specific tools, that I can't do my job. I can't fix the thing because I don't have the tool. So that happens on the maintenance side. It happens on the office side as well. If you have faulty Wi-Fi and I'm supposed to be doing work on a tablet, how can I do my work? I can't, the Wi-Fi is not stable. So I can't get my work done. And yet this is a requirement of my job. So I feel like I'm constantly being set up to fail. So those are things that are pretty consistent, but communication in particular, that is one thing that I think we really need to address as an industry.
I think communication and culture go hand in hand. What I say about the culture is not this one like magic thing. For example, huge companies, let's say Greystar, approaching 1 million units under management, apartment homes under management. You can't say this is Greystar culture. Of course, you could say high level, let's just say, but there's just like thousands of cultures within Greystar,
Right.
right?
The
And
micro cultures. Yeah.
yes, it's macro, it's micro. To me, I've identified like the three main ones, which is one, which is the top, the corporate culture, where they're crafting the messages and they're trying to broadcast them to the site levels. Second one is site level culture, which is around property manager, service manager at the site
Mhm.
level, right? So those that manage the site. And then there's
Mhm.
another one that's regional, that's
Yeah.
around regional managers. You could tell within a company like what type of regional manager they have based on how a property operates. Like literally, that regional manager drives the culture, right? They hire people that kind of mirror their type of management, and
Mhm.
you could tell if they're on top of their game or not. You could tell if they're in their properties or not,
Yep.
because they're employees at the site level for the most part are mirroring those behaviors. And then that's my third culture right there. And I think
I totally
communication
agree.
communication goes hand in hand. When you said micro and macro, I was like, bingo, they go right hand in hand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jen, I want to ask you next, what is the one employee position category that is the greatest flight risk based on your findings?
I'm tempted to say maintenance because that's one of our biggest challenges right now. And so that I want to put on the side and say maintenance is still one of our biggest flight risks. But one that really caught my attention that has me very concerned is the corporate support team. So people like marketing, HR, training, IT, accounting. These are the team members that keep the engine running. They keep things going. And I've seen a real drop off this year in employee engagement scores for corporate team members. And I think it's very interesting because I think a lot of times some of the perception is, oh, corporate gets everything. They have like lunch brought in all the time. They get yoga in the office once a week. There's all these perks that you see from the outside that feels, wow, that feels unfair. I wish we had a yoga instructor that would come to my site every day. Like we could all chill out during lunchtime. But I think the other side of the coin that maybe on-site team members don't see is there's a lot of things like leasing appreciation, maintenance appreciation, staying after hours to make sure that all the bills are paid for this, or creating a last minute training that's a new state requirement, and training staying there after hours. There's a lot of things that go on that happens at the corporate support level that's a roller coaster that they're having to do. And oftentimes, and what I'm seeing right now is all that work and the things and solving problems and getting answers to questions that they're doing, they're not always getting the recognition that they need or want. And they're also feel like they're left in the dark. One of the things when we talk about macro communication, even though a corporate support team member might be in the main corporate office and physically they are in the closest proximity to the CEO, the president, whoever, they're often the ones that are mostly in the dark. They don't know what's going on. And I think they're reaching a point now where they're reaching maximum frustration. Okay, I'm sitting right here, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know the plan. I don't know that we're expanding. I don't know about the portfolio that I just found out yesterday is we're getting rid of tomorrow. There's all these things where they feel like they're not getting the information they need and they feel like they deserve it because they're there. They're right there. And they are a critical component of keeping that engine running so that the properties can run smoothly. And so I think this is one of those periods of time where we need to look at how are we supporting our corporate team members? How are we developing them? Because when you think about the training that's typically built, it's typically focusing on leasing, or maybe there's leadership training, but there's very rarely a specific training or development set up for the accounting team or the marketing team. Maybe they get sent to a conference here and there, but or HR even. Those are the team members where they just want a little extra recognition, a little extra love, and just feel like they are more incorporated into the bigger picture. And I think that's a real opportunity because when those people start feeling unappreciated, disrespected, and if they start leaving in droves, oh my gosh, we are in serious trouble. Can you imagine if you lost 25% of your corporate team members in the next 6 months? Oh my gosh, that would be quite an act of trying to like make everything function properly. So I think they are an overlooked team. I think we take them for granted a lot. And I think now they're starting to push back and say, we feel like we're being overlooked. We feel we have put max capacity. We are wrung out like a sponge and we need some support now. So I think that's a huge opportunity when we're looking at the whole team, just making sure our corporate support team members get what they need and then continuing to focus that spotlight on maintenance because that continues to be a big challenge.
I'm gonna add something to what you just said about being overlooked. Second part of 2023, I've seen a abundance of open to work banners on LinkedIn. And an overwhelming, I would say, majority of them were from learning and development individuals that worked in these departments and marketing. So I will add on top of what you just said, we're not only overlooked, we're being laid off first, right?
Yeah.
So when companies have to up their game because there's less room to make money for the investors in
Hmm.
this environment with raising interest rates with less opportunities to save, right? In you have to have better employees, right, to perform better. You have to increase your performance. The first thing that companies do, not all but a lot of them do, is to lay off their marketing and learning and development. So
Hmm.
it goes back to that saying, the CFO saying, why should we train those people? Because they're gonna leave anyway. And the CEO says, yeah, what if we don't train them and they stay?
It's so true. It's like one of these frustrating circles where it's okay, I understand you need to save money, but in order to get your best performance, in order to ensure that your team members are having the support and the resources that they need to get residents in the door and keep them, you need that training, you need that marketing, you need those support systems to really enhance the performance of your on-site team members. And there are many companies who don't value that relationship, that critical relationship. They're not seeing the cause and effect. And so when they get rid of learning and development and then their teams start to perform even more poorly, they're like, do better, guys. And they're like, okay, I can't just decide to do better. I need the training, I need the development, I need those resources so that I know how to perform better.
I need to be better in order to do better.
Right.
I can
Right.
just do better.
Suddenly, okay, I'm better now.
Just like that. One of the things that's not talked about enough is not part of the mainstream conversation in our industry is the cost of replacing a an employee that
Oh, yeah.
leaves the company for the business overall. I've seen all sorts of like numbers estimations. I wonder if you could speak on this particular topic. How does the cost, first of all, are there any tools or is Sweep Bunny in process of developing any tools to track the cost of replacing employees? And how does that impact the overall business operations?
Yeah. It's we actually have a cost of turnover calculator, and I can drop that in the chat to you in just a little bit, that shows you not only because when you lose employees, you're not only having the cost to replace them, but it also impacts the ability of your team to provide service to existing residents, which puts your existing residents at risk. So resident turnover tends to get higher when employee turnover tends to get higher. There's a direct relationship there. We see it over and over again. But when you lose an employee, you've got to put out the search. So you're going to be paying for recruitment. You're going to be paying for the time for people to be doing interviews and the background checks and all that kind of stuff. But in addition to those standard costs, you are also tending to pay more overtime for your existing team. So there's more money out the door. You may be having to be hiring temps. So you're paying more for a role that would, if you had someone in place, you wouldn't be paying quite that much. So overall, you tend to be paying anywhere. I've seen estimates, depending on your market and depending how long a position is open, you can be paying anywhere from 33 to 67% of that employee's salary to replace them. And that's just on the employee side. That's not even factoring in the resident turnover costs that are also associated with that. So it's a huge drain on revenue, on NOI, and it is a part of that conversation that we don't really talk enough about. Losing an employee and replacing an employee is so incredibly expensive, and our turnover calculator can help you get an estimate of what you're potentially losing. And one of the things that we hope to develop over the next year or two is within the Swift Money system, being able to track your own costs of how much does this really cost us when we're losing a leasing agent, a maintenance technician, an accountant, whatever it might be.
It's fascinating, and I love to get the if there's a link, right? Because when we produce the video, when we post produce, I like to put the link into the, if it's available. Is it available to
Yep,
the
it
public?
is available. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to put it in a show notes just so people could have access when they're watching the YouTube video. I think this is so important. It's paramount that
Mhm.
people could use this tool. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a shame not to use it, especially that it's a free tool. Jen, what specific areas of improvement have been identified regarding compensation fairness based on your report?
We're seeing a lot more companies that are willing to do in-depth compensation surveys within their markets. We're seeing more companies that are, instead of having a blanket one compensation study, if they're a national company and just having an overall average, they're really being market specific. Someone who's working in maybe Montana or Wyoming might be in a different salary range than someone who works in LA or New York City. So they're able to be more specific and more in line with compensation where people are actually living. We're also seeing a lot more having to do with incentives and benefits and being more focused in on how can we truly incentivize our team members. And it's interesting, we've had a couple of clients who their scores when it comes to incentives just shot through the roof. And I was like, okay, how did you do that? Because just to give you some perspective, if I see an improvement of 2-point score, I'm like, all right, okay, you're getting some traction. Your team members are seeing that there's a difference. But we were seeing improvements of 8 points, 9 points, 10 points. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? This is a skyrocket. What did you do here? And it was interesting because 3 separate companies, they're in different parts of the country. They are different sizes and makeups. But from each one of them, they all talked about how they were doing more frequent, smaller incentives throughout the year rather than big bonuses, maybe once or twice a year. And because in addition with those smaller incentives that are more frequent, it was also the opportunity to recognize people. And so this combination of, yes, we're giving you this incentive, we're rewarding you with this, but we're also recognizing the work that you're doing and what it took for you to achieve these goals, that seemed to really resonate with employees in a big way. So I've become a big fan, and I'm trying to get more stories because I want to write up a case study about it. But I think that compensation is one thing, and also educating your team members on what the compensation is made up of. Because if you have someone leaving your company because someone else is willing to pay them $1 or 2 more, and yet they get over there and the benefits are not as, or their annual incentive program is lesser, then they're actually worse off at this new place. So helping your team member, we really encourage our clients to put together a compensation statement, a total compensation statement, so they can see the entire dollar amount that a company is investing into you as an individual. They're paying this much of your premiums for your healthcare, or they're having quarterly incentive programs, or whatever else might be involved with that. Those are things that every employee needs to really understand, because there are often times where people are pleasantly surprised, where it's like, oh, I didn't realize that the fact that the company is paying 70% of my premium is actually giving me an extra $300, $400 a month in my paycheck that I might not have somewhere else if I wanted to be a part of the healthcare program. So things like that, I think, are important. I think the companies that have done a better job of clarifying that and being more transparent about pay ranges and things like that, we're seeing a lot of positive improvement there.
I want to ask you, Jen, a couple of very specific questions in regards to compensation, right? So salary, strictly salary, like hourly wages or like for
Mhm.
the salaried employee salaries. Are you aware of any company that assesses and adjusts wages more than once a year? That's the first part of the question. The second part goes to bonuses, right? So most, if not all, companies that I work for that offer quarterly bonuses. Let's just take Q1, right? Q1 ended on March 31st. If you are a salary plus, like hourly plus bonus position, you will get paid somewhere like about 2 months after the quarter ends. And by the time you get paid for the current quarter, you're already 2 months out of the 3 months into the next quarter. So if you're even considering leaving the company at that time, you're waiting for your bonus, the question comes up, do I really want to leave the company now that I got my bonus for Q1, but we're already 2 months in Q3 and I've done, fairly well for myself. And a lot of companies are using this as a tool to extend people staying, make them really think twice about like leaving the company, because
Mhm.
every time they're leaving, there's money left on a table. So
Mhm.
I'm curious about these two. If you see some companies doing things a little different than what I'm used to.
I haven't dove into that particular cadence of when bonuses are paid. We tend to focus more on compensation overall as a whole. When it comes to evaluating compensation more than once a year, I haven't come across that very frequently. I think we had one company that did do an evaluation because they had done an adjustment, and then their engagement scores on compensation did not move at all. And in fact, for some positions, it went down. And they were like, wait a minute, we just made an adjustment. Let's go back and reevaluate it. So there are some cases where a company will do that, where that's something that they're really focused on improving. And if they're not seeing the positive impact that they expected it to, some of them will go back and say, okay, why did this not work? Or why did this not resonate? Or did not have the impact that we expected it to? So I think that's a good thing. But I think, again, with the bonus structure, the one thing, I'll just go back to that previous example, the more frequent, smaller incentives really have seemed to, I think those are companies that went away from those bigger quarterly bonuses or those mid-year bonuses. And they really focused more on how do we reward people more frequently. It might not be as the big dollar amount, but it's happening more frequently throughout the year. And I think the thing that made the difference is it wasn't only about sticking around for the money, but I think being balanced with people feeling like they're seeing me, they're seeing the work that I'm doing, and they're rewarding me for the work that just occurred, maybe in the last month or the last 2 months. And so I think that feeling of appreciation, I think that also goes hand in hand with feeling respected for the work that we're doing. And I think that goes a long way because sometimes it's really about the money, but sometimes it's about what the money represents. If I don't feel like I'm being compensated for the work and the effort I'm putting into something, that feels disrespectful. But maybe I'm being paid, maybe it's $1 or two less than down the road, but I feel seen and I feel appreciated and I feel supported throughout my work. For many people, that's a reason to stay. I might not be becoming a millionaire, but I am doing good work. I'm being paid a reasonable amount, and I feel like I'm being recognized for that work on a regular basis. So that's what I've seen be most effective, but we still have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Jenna, another amazing conversation today as we are wrapping up this episode. Any final thoughts? Anything you wish you would have said, or like any answer in answer to a question you wish I would have asked? Any final thoughts to conclude our conversation today?
I think the big thing right now, and I think going along with the whole economic issue and tightening belts and things like that, I think people and companies and leaders in particular need to understand how critical employee feedback really is. And it may be an extra line item on their budget, and they might think, I don't know if that's worth the investment. But I want to say it really is. The companies that we've been working with, I've had some great conversations where, like, one in particular, Tom Gwynn at Apartment Dynamics, he sat down and was just doing some what he called napkin math of the comparison of the turnover they had before they started getting feedback and the turnover that they were seeing after a couple years of doing employee feedback. And it had significantly dropped. And he's just on a nap. And I was able to see very clearly by understanding what our employees needed, what they liked, what they didn't like, and being able to change some of them. We can't change everything, but we were focused on changing some things and making things better. People are feeling more fulfilled in their work. They feel more appreciated. They like what they're doing. They feel like they have what they need to do their work. And so they're sticking around longer. And I think until it's not about guessing what's going on with your team members, it's about knowing what's going on with your team members and being able to address that. We don't have to guess. We can ask the questions, we can find out what they need, and they're going to stick around longer because of the great improvements that a company can make.
Jen, where can we see you on a industry circuit event next? Where are you going next to participate? Where are you going next to speak? What are your next appearances?
I'm really excited. I'm going to be at TAA1 just in the end of April. So I'm excited there. And I have 3 sessions that I'm going to be talking about: career development, risks, and employee obsessed companies. I get to interview some panelists there. So look for me on Thursday. I'm going to be talking all Thursday morning. So find me there. And then I will be at NAA in Philadelphia this June. So I'll look forward to connecting with a lot of people there. I'll be speaking on a panel there about career development. And I've got some awesome panelists with me. So I'll look forward to seeing people there.
I hope to catch at least one of your presentations, as I'll be at TA1 myself. Jen, thank you so much for spending time with us today, for taking an hour out of your busy day to be with us and share some great things that are happening as Squib Bonnie and industry in general. I hope to get you back here soon.
Thanks, Adrian. It's always a pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for watching another episode of Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.